Welcome into the Phoenix Sports Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. I'm your host, Makayla Perkins, and joining me today is Gerald Bourguet, Chierstin, Susel, and the one and only Steve Peters. Happy Hump Day, everyone! I hope your Wednesday got off to a better start than mine. I was really excited to wear this jumpsuit, and then I spilled coffee all over it, so I'm trying to hide the stain with the microphone.
Right there?
I mean, the mic stand is hiding it perfectly, so you're great.
Yeah, awesome, love
job.
that. I know your Wednesday got off to a bit of a rough start.
I was going to Sun Shoot Around this morning. They have the season opener tonight. And a mile before the exit on the freeway I was supposed to get off on, my car ran out of gas. So I had to run to the gas station, get gas, and I missed shoot around entirely. So it's great start to the season so far.
Wow, Gerald, that's tough.
You know, I'm not no judgment, but there's a specific type of person that runs out of gas.
Yeah.
My boyfriend's one of them, and I always am like, how the heck do you allow it to happen?
Well,
No judgment.
No judgment, but there's a specific type of moron. No, I was like, this is the first time it's ever happened to me, and I was like, I'm almost there. I can make it. I could not make it, and I was like,
I don't know.
All days, this is the first time.
I have too much anxiety for that. As soon as the light comes on, I'm like, I need to find a gas station right now.
And now, thankfully, I have like a car, so I don't know if you have this, but you can see like how many miles till empty you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I push it a little bit now. I'm like, oh, I've got 6 miles.
I mean, I'm here to tell you, don't do it anymore. Because mine does that too, but after it gets to like 20, it just stops and it will just start flashing. And
or
I'm
it like
okay,
plummets.
that's
I've
helpful.
seen that. It just all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, I thought I had 20. Now I have like 3. Yeah.
So now I'm going to smell like gas for the Sun season opener. It's fine. We're doing great here.
There are worse things to smell like, I feel like.
I guess that's true.
PD, how you doing over there?
You know, I'm sitting here kind of having a Sesame Street moment right now. It's like one of these things that doesn't belong. We got the Suns coming off NBA championship. Loss, but a hell of a season.
Oh, I thought he was going to say, you spilled coffee, you ran out of gas.
Yeah,
Apparently
where are
I'm the
you
only
going with
mature
this,
person.
PD?
Cardinals undefeated, taking the Valley by storm, and I'm watching the Coyotes season.
All right, well, then I guess that just brings me into our Valley Sports temperature check. The Coyotes have started their season, and
They have started.
They haven't won a game yet, PD.
No.
What is going on over there?
You know, here's the big problem. Not only they've had moments where they've played okay. They've had some offensive outbursts. They look like, gosh, they might be a good team, and then the wheels fall off. And they've had 2 of their 3 outings have been horrific. They've lost, 8-2, 7-4. The concern is when you look at the calendar, I'm not sure where the wins come.
Mm.
They've got Connor McDavid, the best player in the world, comes in here tomorrow night.
Yeah, they're not winning.
They got the New York Islanders, who are people are talking about a playoff run for them, and then they go out east to play Tampa, Florida, Carolina, and Washington.
Whew.
It might be a while before we're sitting here talking about Coyote winning hockey.
If you could put your finger on one reason why it hasn't gone well, what would that reason be?
It's hard to say just one, but honestly, it's going to be about ownership. It's what we're going to talk about today. They're doing it on purpose. And when you try to lose on purpose in sports, it's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
You just create a bad team. So you don't spend money. You trade away all your players that are helping the team win. It's easy to lose.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here today, to talk about ownership.
Well, going from a team that hasn't won a single game to a team that has won every single game, they are undefeated. Chierstin. The Cardinals are 6-0 right now. They have a pretty good shot of going 7-0 this Sunday. Do you think that they can go 7-0?
They are 17.5-point favorites this week. So I would certainly hope so. I think earlier in the season, there was discussions, like, for instance, when the Cardinals were going to Jacksonville, could this be a trap game? I think with the amount of adversity the Cardinals have overcome this season and the maturity and resilience that they've showed, I don't even think the word trap game is even a question or is even in a sentence that surrounds this matchup on Sunday. So it should be a game that, as long as they stay focused, they still don't have their head coach, who is coming up with a game plan from his house virtually. But listen, they've already showed that they can beat a really good Cleveland team on the road, without him and without some of their key pieces. So they should be 7-0 after this week if they just stick to what they've been doing.
Have you heard anything from JJ or D-Hop about how they feel going up against their former team?
Neither have talked yet.
Okay.
We did ask some of the players and Vance Joseph today if they had, any discussions with either of them about, emotions that might be flying, this weekend surrounding this game for them. But they say that, hey, they're both pros. They're both focused on what's happening on our side of things and just want to win the game. Whether or not that's true and whether or not that's a different case when we end up talking to them later in the week, I don't know.
Interesting. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch the game. It's always cool to see some of the former players go back and dominate their old
It's going to be a sad
teams.
day for Texans fans.
I know.
But Chierstin,
yeah.
I got a question about those two players specifically because I don't know the dynamics of the locker room and the players, and you have a better sense of that. Like when I watch this team, it kind of looks like they're all playing for each other, and I think those two players going against their old team, is that kind of a vibe you think, hey, we need to do it for those guys? Like, do you think this room is that tight right now?
I don't know that the Texans storyline is that big of a motivator, to be honest with you. They've been in bigger battles this season. I mean, if you want to, something along those lines is, I know for sure each time they faced, one more person went down with COVID or with injuries last week, it was like every day it was something more, and then, oh, you don't have your head coach, and then the following day you've got one of your defensive linemen morning of the game that goes down. I mean, it was just one thing after another thing after another thing, and talking with the players, it was like, it just motivated us even more. We're going to do it for that guy. We're going to do it for coach. We're going to do it for that guy. All right, now we've got one more reason that we're going to pull off a win, and they did it in convincing fashion. So they do have that camaraderie in the locker room. I just don't know that the Texans storyline is that big of a motivator.
Well, and to be fair, too, I think a lot of their motivation comes from the fact that for whatever reason, the Cardinals keep getting overlooked by pretty much everybody other than the Arizona Cardinals themselves. I mean, up until this week, they were only highest second on power rankings. And so it's just kind of wild to me that nobody is giving this team the credit that I think they deserve and that everybody, in Arizona thinks they deserve. And they're just seemingly, people are making excuses for why they're successful. They're not really giving them the credit they deserve. And I think that's a huge motivation for them because they're aware of it. I mean, JJ Watt on the sideline, had a great soundbite of, maybe we're just better. We're just better than everybody else. But I think it's so weird they're not getting credit. And
I think, and maybe you could speak to this a little bit too with the Suns. I almost want to say that it has something to do with just the sports market because I feel like the Suns went through the same thing. And even when they made it through the finals, people were still, and national outlets were still, it was because the Lakers had injuries. So that's why. It was because, and it was just always what the other team was going through as opposed to what the Suns were doing. And so we saw it just last year. We're seeing it again with the Cardinals. I think there's something about this market. We're not a Dallas or, a market that just naturally garners a lot of national media attention. I saw outlets this week that left them off of their rankings. It was Super Bowl contenders, and they're not even included in the conversation. And it's like, do you pay attention at all?
Seriously.
So.
Right. No, it was very much a thing with the Suns last year too. And even heading into this year, I think we asked Monty about is it nice that the Suns are kind of getting the respect that they deserve and seen as a finals contender? He's like, I don't really see much of that. From what I've seen, they know that we're better, but it's still the LA teams. It's still Boston. Even New York gets more buzz than a team like Phoenix just because for whatever reason, people forget this is the 5th largest city in America, but the sports culture or just the market here is not quite the same as some of those other diehard sports cities in the national eye for whatever reason.
That's why we exist.
Yes, exactly.
PHNX is here to save the day.
No, that's the argument that I made. I was like, hey, if you're unhappy with the national media, why are you tuning in? You've got all you need right here. Coyotes,
Absolutely.
Cardinals, Suns,
Diamondbacks. We do it all 5 days a week, 5 podcasts a week. All right, let's wrap up our Valley Sports temperature check with the Suns. The Suns, they are playing real, meaningful basketball tonight.
Yes.
It is back. Suns basketball is back. Gerald, how are you feeling?
I feel great. It's exciting. I mean, I didn't get my season opening day off to the best start, but the Suns feel great. Everybody's healthy. The Nuggets are obviously still without Jamal Murray, and this is a team that the Suns swept handily in the playoffs without Jamal Murray. So I feel at home and just based on the continuity they have compared to last year, they're feeling pretty good and pretty confident heading into this one.
That's great to hear. Obviously, we want them feeling good heading into their season opener, especially at home. And I know we're going to get into this in a little bit, but is there any dark cloud hanging over this team, do you think? I just want to know if it's affected people outside of DA, obviously, with the contract stuff.
You know, face value, everything that they've told us is like, we're moving past this. Like, we're here for DA because we know he's disappointed. And,
right.
and everybody, all the vets on the team, like they had said, like our job, and Monty too, our job is to get him the bag. It's to get him paid. And so they were disappointed for him that he didn't get this contract extension that he wanted. But at the same time, like, life moves on. He still wants to be here. The Suns still want him here, even though they weren't willing to pay up to his asking price. So it's one of those things where you kind of just let his on-court play do the talking, because he hasn't spoken to us since that happened. It's been...
You haven't received any update from DA himself?
No. So it's been 2 practice sessions and then shoot around this morning. He hasn't talked to us yet.
He didn't talk and shoot around?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right.
Yeah.
I was on the side of the road, but I was I was frantically running to a gas station with my Zoom call open. But yeah.
I was told that there is a good chance that he would talk today.
He should talk post game. I would assume that's when we finally get him, because then it'll be like there'll be actual on-court results to talk about. So hopefully, I mean, I hope that this doesn't turn into some type of standoff, but it could just be a young player wanting to take his time for when he does talk to us to get everything that he wants to say, you know, down pat.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that more in just a second, but that was your Valley Sports temperature check. And before we get into our topic of the day, you guys, I got to tell you about DraftKings Sportsbook. NFL fans, are you hungry for a big win this week? DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL, has got you covered. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game. And if they do, you will win $200 in free bets. Hashtag winner, winner, chicken dinner. It's really that simple. DraftKings Sportsbook customers can also get some skin in the game with their new same game parlays. Combine multiple bets for the same game for a bigger payout. The more legs you add, the more money you can win. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. And best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. That's one of my favorite parts of the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Make sure you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PHNX. Bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game, and you'll win $200 in free bets if they win. You win with promo code PHNX this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. 21 and up only, Arizona only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. New customers only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. All right, how about we get into our main topic of the day? Aaron, hit it with us. How has ownership impacted the Arizona's sports teams? Not the most positive topic for some people, but I think still an important topic. Obviously, we're talking about this because the DeAndre Ayton news that has come out. The rookie contract extension deadline was a couple days ago, and DA went without the extension. It was reported that Robert Sarver was not going to offer him the max contract that he was looking for, so he did not get the extension that he wanted. I don't want to be a pessimist, but Gerald, this seems like a reoccurring issue. And in the 18 seasons that Sarver has owned the Suns now, it seems like he just shoots himself in the foot, and he just can't shake the negative narrative that has surrounded him and the ownership of this team.
Right. It's unfortunate because time and time again, we've heard Sarver say, like, I've learned my lesson from this mistake. I'm going to be better. I'm willing to pay to keep a contender together. And if you look at the other contracts he gave out this summer, or that he at least approved of his GM to make, he paid up. Like, he paid up for Chris Paul. Campaign's deal was a bargain, but he also gave Landry Shamet an extension, Mikal Bridges an extension. They brought in guys that are going to keep this championship team together. It's just unfortunate that when it came to DA, who is probably the greatest potential source of friction on this team from a chemistry standpoint, if he didn't get what he wanted, they didn't give him what he wanted. And, whether this is Sarver or not, or James Jones just not wanting to pay the max, because there are reports that have surfaced in the last few days about it being more a James Jones thing than a Robert Sarver thing. either way, because of Sarver's history, he will never get the benefit of that doubt. So it's one of those things where, he's in a lose-lose situation because of his past and because of these type of things that keep cropping up again.
See, that was like my first thought when we were prepping for this show. I was talking to Makayla about it, and I was like, it's hard to differentiate sometimes the difference between what move is the general manager's move and what move is the owner's move. And a lot of times, we don't know the all the details of what goes on. But I would say from Sarver's perspective, he's given over the reins to James Jones, and he's been vocal about that. So my first thought, even in that situation, was I wonder if James Jones really felt like that deal had to be done. If Robert Sarver is back to his old ways where he's hard-headed and he's gonna be the puppet making all the moves, or if James Jones isn't all sold out on that deal, and therefore Robert's like, okay, if you don't think that he's worth it right now, then we're not going to do that. Whatever the case is, but it's typically not just we're doing this, we're not doing this because I said so.
Right. And that's the hard part, is like, because James Jones did come out in that Athletic article and he said, like, no, this was me. Like, we were playing around with the idea of a 3 or a 4 year max, but they wanted the full 5 years and we just didn't want to meet that. I think in the article it said they wanted to retain their flexibility because the type of contract that he would have gotten would have prevented them from trading for another star player who's on a similar type of contract, which is weird because if they were going to trade for that third star, like, how are they going to get that done without including DA? Like, so I don't understand that. But it's one of those things where James Jones is publicly saying it was me, but a lot of Suns fans are going to have a hard time ever believing that just because of everything they've gone through over the last
year.
year.
Yeah, the history of Sarver here, that's a real gray area. And I think when it works out the best in sports is when the owner does hand the reins over and says, it's all you. Unfortunately, that's so rare because the egos and the money involved that the owners take a step back. And I when I was with the Coyotes, lucky enough, I was in a situation where we were owned by the league at one time. And I'll be completely honest, there was no budget, there was no money, but that's as smooth as that organization has ever run.
Yeah,
because the general manager ran it based on hockey decisions, not based on money and business decisions. So I think that's why fans, and I'm a fan of the Suns, I'm not inside it, I look at it and go, yeah, he's had his hands in a lot of stuff. So him not to be involved, you're kind of surprised. The bigger issue now for DA is if he wants to get paid and he wants that money, there's only one route to get there. And that's to play extremely good basketball. Like if he doesn't show up, he's not going to get paid.
I think this will be the ultimate test of his maturity. So he matured, leaps and bounds last season. But I kind of think back to a guy like Jordan Hicks with the Arizona Cardinals, who was told on draft day that he was being replaced by a rookie before David Collins, before anyone even stepped on the field. Steve Keim said, Jordan, you don't even have an opportunity to compete for the starting spot. We're going with David Collins, this kid we just drafted. He has, a super high ceiling. He's our guy. That's what we're going with. And you've been great to us, so I'm going to let you walk if you want to. And that's that. And Jordan Hicks didn't. He stayed, and he worked his butt off. And guess who is starting? Jordan Hicks. And so that showed tremendous amount of maturity. None of the situation that was going on with a contract or starting, playing time or whatever bled into the locker room. And I'll be curious to see, because DeAndre Ayton has been criticized in the past for his maturity, how it all unfolds. It scares me a little bit how he'll react, right?
Do you think it's a bad sign he hasn't said anything yet?
I don't think it's the best sign. I give him the benefit of the doubt because we've seen, especially in the past year, how important it is for these athletes to be able to prioritize their mental health.
Yeah.
I don't think this is quite the same thing because he's still practicing, he's still playing. It's not I'm burnt out of all the pressure of this sport. It's more of I'm upset I didn't get the contract I want, which I understand, because if I had millions of dollars at stake and I didn't get that kind of extension, I'd be pretty bummed too.
Yeah.
And I'd want to take time to collect my thoughts. But the longer that he goes without speaking to us and giving his side, the more that this becomes a story, the more that this kind of lingers in the air. So I hope that tonight, we'll be able to watch a great game, first of all, and then we'll be able to talk about the game, ask our questions about how he's feeling about the contract, and then move on. And I know that it'll be on the minds of lots of Suns fans everywhere all season long, but like, I kind of just want to nip this in the bud so we can focus on basketball again.
Yeah, it seems like that would be the smartest way to go. And, I want to ask you too, I feel like this entire situation surrounding DeAndre and the Suns and Robert Sarver, I think it's been magnified to a certain extent because, you mentioned previously, past mistakes. And this feels very similar to another situation that Robert Sarver got in with Joe Johnson. And we actually have Joe Johnson weighed in on this situation. Aaron, if you want to put that on the screen, the tweet. So this is a tweet that was posted. Obviously, this is Woj announcing that the contract between DA and the Suns didn't get done. And then Joe Johnson in the comments sounded off with a comment saying, "It sounds about right coming from Robert."
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So Joe commented, that was his comment, saying that it sounded about right coming from Robert. Obviously, there's some contentious feelings. Yeah.
That's like shots fired.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. So that happened a couple days ago, obviously. Obviously, Joe is, still a little salty, I guess you could say, getting burned by Sarver himself. But I think this has triggered Suns fans because it feels so much similar to that situation. And I just want to know, I guess it's kind of hard to say, but why do we keep getting in this cycle?
Yeah. I mean, so it's Joe Johnson was the name that kept coming up repeatedly when we were talking about this potential extension for DeAndre, because there are some similarities there. I think it was back in 2004. They couldn't come to an agreement on an extension. Joe had a fantastic season that year. And then
they gave Steve Nash, a ton of money, which was, he was old. So people were like, well, is that the best decision? Obviously, it paid off, but that's kind of like Chris Paul. Chris Paul's at the end of his career. They just gave Chris Paul a ton of money. And now you got, DA in the same.
Yeah, they had a potential finals team back then. And a lot of people believe that if they had kept Joe Johnson that following season, they probably would have won it all. I think he wanted like a 6-year, $50 million extension, and they wouldn't give it to him. And then when he balled out and it was time to negotiate again the following summer, they offered him the same figure that they had offered him the year before that he didn't want. So I think he was pissed about that. And then that's when he decided to tell them, don't match any offer on me. I want to go to the Hawks. And that's what wound up happening. So this is a little bit different, but people are very worried that it could go that way.
Because, for people who don't know contract side of sports, DA is going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the season.
Yes.
Teams are going to be allowed to give him an offer sheet, and he technically can accept that offer and walk if, if the Suns don't want to match it, or if the Suns, choose not to match it. Are you afraid that that's a possibility?
I think it's a possibility, but I really do feel like if the Suns if this season doesn't go according to plan, if DA doesn't look like a guy they want to invest in long term, then rather than not match an offer sheet from someone else and lose him for nothing, I think they would seriously consider trading him ahead of the trade deadline. I think they're very much, if you're not committing to your number one overall pick, he's the first number one pick to not get this kind of contract extension since 2007, which was Greg Oden.
Why not though? Like, what's the missing piece that on the
Could
outside
there be
that I'm
something
missing?
personal to it?
Yeah, is there a personality thing?
It could be because DA has not outside of the playoff run. The vast majority of DA's first 3 regular seasons have been inconsistency. There was the 25-game suspension due to the diuretics. There was the missing a bubble game because he missed his COVID tests, which is hard to do in a bubble where you're getting tested multiple times a day. So there were concerns about his maturity. I think, like Chierstin said, he's grown up a lot in that regard over the last year.
He had safety nets all around him, though.
He does.
And Chris Paul and Monty Williams. I'm not advocating. I'm not defending, not signing DA to a max deal. But I could understand it from that perspective, because could you imagine how many things that go on behind the scenes that we don't know? Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, these are the things that we do know, and they're pretty serious. So is it, 1 year with a whole lot of safety nets around him and then, the dad thing or whatever, he had a life changes, but they probably want to see, okay, well, that was you had one good year where you improved and a maturity instance, but are you going to continue or not?
Right. It's one of those things where the Suns evaluated him and his value in a vacuum, because in a vacuum, DeAndre Ayton is not your typical max player. Like I looked back on the players who have gotten this type of deal over the last few years, And they're all guys that can create their own offense, guys that are bona fide superstars. And then Andrew Wiggins, who everyone kind of makes fun of that contract as being a mistake. So if you have to ask if a guy is a max contract guy in a vacuum, he's probably not. But if you look at his market value, like as soon as Michael Porter Jr. got that kind of deal that he got from the Denver Nuggets, DA's people were never going to accept anything less, and nor should they have. So it's unfortunate. It could just be as simple as James Jones doesn't see it yet and like prove it. Like prove that what you showed in the playoffs you can do on a night-to-night basis again, and then we'll pay up. But, everyone's going to go back to Sarver always for this.
Yeah, but the fear is that he's going to, we said before, like if he goes, sits and pouts about it and he doesn't perform on the court and he complains in the media, you're not going to get paid by anybody.
Right.
So you're not going to get the contract you want. If he does get that offer and the Suns don't match it, they don't want him. So it's really tough to him.
I would say if you have a player, to your point, if you've got a player who can't handle the fact that, hey, we want you to play another year to show us that you're worth I mean, we're not talking like a $10,000 raise. Like we're talking about some serious money that's going to change the landscape of what this team's going to look like in the future and who they're going to be able to bring and what, moving pieces are going to be a part of this team for years to come. So, I lost my train of thought there, but yeah, I guess to my point, I guess if you have a guy that's going to take it personally and allow it to affect the locker room, etc., do you want that guy to be on the team?
It's going to be difficult because he has said in, media day was the first time that he's kind of directly mentioned the fact that like, yeah, I did sacrifice last year for the good of the team by focusing on just my role. And then he said, I don't like my big man role. He straight up said that at training camp. Like, I don't like my role. I want to shoot more threes. I want to do more on offense. He said he's been telling the coaches that some of the things that he wants to do a little bit more this season. Those are kind of red flags to me before we even got to this point. I think that the ironic part is he got into this conversation of potentially being a max guy because he focused on his role in the playoffs, and that's what made him so valuable.
Because all of a sudden we saw a physical guy down low and a great defender and things that we hadn't seen consistently out of DA. Right. That was what is even getting us to this point where we're defending it. Yeah. Wait a second.
Right. So for him to say that, it's worrisome because if he starts hunting shots, if he lets this affect him and says, okay, I sacrificed, I didn't get what I wanted. Right. Now I'm going to get mine because I want to get paid. It's actually going to backfire on him, I feel like, because I don't think he has that type of stuff in his game yet to be that type of player that's going to go out and get a max deal. I think other teams were surprised he didn't get the max from the Suns, and the Suns do have the power to max. They have the power to give him an extra year and way more money than anybody else next season. But if other teams know the Suns are going to match and the offers don't come, we could be back in the same situation where the Suns are lowballing him again next year. Right. So it's kind of a mess right now.
Lowballing also doesn't work in any, coming from a TV background. It never ends well.
But having said that too, and I look at what we're doing or what people are going to their cubes today, and if the guy on the other side of the cube wall is making a lot more money than you, it's hard. It's hard not to get those emotions and that frustration. Hey, I'm coming in here and doing this. I might be doing more and providing more to this company than that guy.
Right.
It's hard.
But I think that is why this is going to be a perfect opportunity for DA to put up or shut up and, show the Suns that regardless of, this contract, regardless of any external factors, I'm going to come every day. I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to show you why I should have gotten that extension in the first place and make you regret it. But
if he does that and the Suns, for whatever reason, don't give him a max contract, we're talking about a completely different. We're ripping even more into Sarver, into James Jones, and DA is going to be pissed.
Right.
But don't you think, though, and maybe I'm being optimistic, if he does all those things, keeps his mouth shut, good citizen in the room, plays well, does the things he's asked to help this team win, I mean, I guess I'd like to hope that the Suns come through on their side of the bargain. Clearly, we don't know if they will be. I'd like to see that that's the direction they go.
It's scary that, it's going to come down to Robert Sarver in that decision-making room.
Not really, though.
You don't think so?
I still think James Jones has the upper hand. He's been given the reins. I think if DA proves himself and James Jones is like, here's what my thought is, moving forward the next few years. DA fits. We need to have him. He proved himself. We're sold out. This is what you need to do. I think Robert will do it.
And that's going to be, where, my last question before we move on to the Coyotes ownership. What can Robert Sarver do, or is there anything left for him to do to redeem himself as the owner of this organization? Win a championship?
Not immediately. A lot of people are saying like he needs to make himself available to the press and explain why he did this. And I'm like, okay, James Jones just went to The Athletic and explained why he did this. And I agree. I think he's been given more reins than, Ryan McDonough had in the past, for example. It's just unfortunate because like you go back to like his first couple years on the job, in 4 back-to-back drafts, he drafted a good player, recognizable name, and traded them away for a future draft pick and cash considerations. God. And then the next year he did it again. So it was Nate Robinson in 2005, Sergio Rodriguez in 2006, and Rajon Rondo in 2006, Rudy Fernandez in 2007. Like that's 4 years of like taking a first round draft pick that could have helped Steve Nash's teams,
right,
and trading him away for a future asset. And then when the future asset came, he did it again. So
right.
It's hard to come back from that. I think it's going to come down to next summer what happens with this DeAndre Ayton situation. And if they pay up then I think we need to dial back some of that criticism because, like I said, he did pay up a lot of money for some of these other guys. I really do think it might have just come down to James Jones not being ready to hand him that 5-year max.
All right. Well, there you have it. That was a good breakdown, Gerald. Speaking of ownership issues,
wow.
Steve Peters, the Arizona Coyotes. We have had a lot of issues with ownership with this team. They've gone back and forth between owners. There was a time, like you said, where they were owned by the league because they didn't have an owner. And then, through turmoil, they finally managed to find someone who they thought was going to be a great owner and very well may still be. Sorry, I couldn't speak English there. But, when Alex Morello took over, there's this excitement. They were excited for the first, Hispanic owner in the NHL. And then this offseason, Katie Strang from The Athletic drops a bomb about how dysfunctional this front office, this ownership group has been overall. What is going on with the Coyotes? Is there ever going to be a stable ownership situation for that franchise?
It's hard. And you look at the other organizations in the city and they've had, minimal ownership not issues, but owners. Like it's either a family issue. Mm-hmm. They keep the Bidwell families had the Cardinals forever.
Yeah.
The Coyotes, honestly, you don't know year to year what the hell is going to happen or who's going to own your team. And you hear coaches and general managers talk about culture, winning culture. I think it's overused by coaches bringing in a culture versus a different coach. Culture starts with an owner. Yeah. Like that's where the culture starts. And unfortunately, what happens here is time and time and time again, you get new players coming here and they're going, you guys do it this way? And you're like, welcome to Oakland. And that's hard. Like they talk like they're providing professional atmosphere and professional things and then don't always spend to that level. Mm-hmm. And I get why. I mean, season tickets, they don't sell them. Corporate sponsorships go downtown to the Suns. It's a hard marketplace to make money in. So the owners have to be financially responsible. Completely understand that. The issues go beyond that when they try to delve into other areas than the business side and the money side. And I think that's through all sports when owners try to get involved with what's going on in the sport. Mm-hmm. If they would hire a general manager, let them do their job, you're in charge of the sport, I think they'd be better off. And what we've seen through the Coyotes through time is owners that wanted to do things for different reasons. The very first owner here, Mr. Richard Burke, bought the team from Winnipeg, moved them here, was probably the prototypical guy that he wanted to win. He wanted to have a good business, but he wanted to be hands off. And if he were still the owner today, we'd be playing in Scottsdale, rooting a team that had multiple years of playoff success. Unfortunately, that went over to Steve Ellman, who is not a sports owner. He's a real estate developer and did not have any concern for winning, developing a team, developing a future. He wanted to develop a shopping district. Well, so now we're no longer in Scottsdale where the hockey fans are. We're in Glendale because he got a heck of a good deal on land to build a mall. And that's...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they gave him the land for Westgate. And that's why we're in Westgate. And so he was a real estate
That's
developer.
why that whole thing exists.
Yeah. That's why the Cardinals are there.
Chierstin's mind just got blown.
But again, so he didn't do it to win or we're going to build a franchise. I got free, cheap land to build them all on. Great. He is no longer the owner. Westgate went bankrupt. The team went bankrupt and he made money. And that's why they do it. So that the frustration level, it just continues to grow. And I said the best of times were when the league owned the franchise. It was fantastic. Don Maloney had free reins to make hockey deals. Had a budget, stick to the budget, make hockey deals. And that's why they had success during those years. They made the playoffs 3 of those years. It's not a surprise. The difficulties with ownership over the last few years, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be a bitter employee. So I have nothing to say about the new owners other than they're trying to win right now and they're doing it through tanking.
Yeah.
They know it. They publicly come out and said it. I hope they're successful with it. I hope they get the building in Tempe. I hope they're able to get those high draft picks. I want to see this franchise succeed, and it's the only way they're going to do that. I hope when that time comes, they're willing to spend money.
Yeah.
And that's how ownership
But I think
needs to
that's
get involved.
why people are so concerned about this ownership group specifically right now is because, you know, the main feature of that article from The Athletic was the fact that this organization was cutting every possible corner when it came to money, not paying vendors or trying to lowball vendors and say, we know we owe you this, but we're only going to pay you this, take it or leave it. They were the only organization in Arizona, sports organization in Arizona, that laid off employees during the pandemic. I
think the Suns, they called it furloughing, but they did lay off some people.
They
'cause
cut jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they cut a lot of jobs.
Because Lindsey Smith was one of them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Lucky for us.
But yeah, lucky for us.
Yeah. But I mean, okay, so then...
I get it.
But that's not encouraging if we're being compared
And what's
to
hard
Sarver.
to look at, and it's easy for sports fans and even employees that were under that regime to say, gosh, you need to keep paying me. Well, really? Like, I lost $50 million last year. How'd you do? Like, okay, I mean, I can't. If I want to complain about it, I should go buy a team. Well, I can't. He could.
Right.
So he's running the team like a business. He has multiple businesses. He's done extremely well in those businesses.
Well, and that's where the other concern comes from, right? Is like he's never owned a sports team before. He made his money in media and casinos in Vegas. Right. So, you know, people are concerned because they're like, well, where is the experience going to come from that's necessary to own a sports team to make decisions that are, you know, going to impact the future of this franchise forever?
And that's what's hard because you want those people to entrust people that have been around sports and involved with sports. And that's why you hire good sports people around you.
Yeah.
Because running a sports team, whether it's hockey, football, baseball, basketball, is much, much different than running a business.
Yeah.
The expectations of your employees, i.e. your players, are much different than what an employee of a regular business, I don't want to call it a regular business, but taking care of players is much different than taking care of employees. Their expectations are different. What they want out of what being in that market means to be a professional basketball player, football player, there are higher expectations. And I think it's just different. It's not always about the bottom line.
Yeah.
Hey, we want an extra massage table in the post-game room. Okay, well, that's going to cost me money. Well, who cares? It'll make me happy.
Yeah.
And making players happy is incredibly important.
But it seems like they, you know, they had trouble doing that even. I mean, Connor Garland his agent sent them an offer sheet. You know, they were trying to negotiate a contract, never heard back, completely ghosted Connor Garland and his agent. So there's another issue of...
There are definitely some financial constraints to how they're dealing with their players at that time. I think Bill Armstrong's trying to re-energize or change that culture. All I can say, it's a difficult landscape for hockey right now. And it's hard to fault them on their business side because there is no revenue until they get that new building. Hopefully they get the new building. They have sports gaming inside that building. Money's flowing in. They pay for players and they win a championship. That's a long way from where we are today.
Do you see that happening soon?
You know, they hope to have the Tempe Arena deal at least announced by the first part of the year. If they get that step going forward, I think it's huge in the direction of this ownership. If they don't get that, all bets are off. I don't know. And that's what these other ownerships that have been here and come and gone didn't get that piece and they leave. And so that's the fear, is if he is unable to get a new building, is this team up for sale again? And that's a fear to go through that again. It's going to be difficult.
Mhm.
I think it's a great thing that they're moving out of Glendale because unfortunately, it's just difficult for that team to survive out there. I mean, the Cardinals
Play once a week.
play once a week, and it's a different scenario. You're going to make the drive once a week on a Sunday. But the Coyotes are a different situation. But I hated how this whole thing came about. And I think it could have been done in a better way. There's always two sides to the story, but
Sure.
I got on as soon as the city of Glendale announced that they weren't renewing the deal with the Coyotes. I got on a call with the city manager who made that decision. And, he didn't bash the Coyotes or the Coyotes organization. He didn't go there, but he expressed a lot of disappointment in the organization and spoke for the city. And I'd be interested to actually get out and talk to people who live in Glendale. But, he mentioned that the city, when they couldn't pay their bills, I mean, they helped the Coyotes survive, and they have done, a lot of things to, help build up the Coyotes, and feel like the fact that they were always 1 foot out and wishy-washy and didn't really play their role in supporting the community of Glendale. And then obviously, the negotiations didn't go well because Coyotes came out and said, "Oh, we were blindsided by this," while the city manager said, "No, we've been talking about this for a long time." I mean, all the details surrounding it's great. Yeah, the Coyotes are going to be somewhere that's easier to access games, and that should hopefully bring in more fans, more revenue, etc. That's going to keep the Coyotes in Arizona. But I hated to hear the way that it all went about, because it's almost like a Sarver type of deal. It's like the city says one thing, you say another thing. Who's got a better track record?
Yeah.
You've got a bad past, so I'm going to believe the city of Glendale on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you expect them to react? We don't like it here. We don't like your building. We don't like dealing with you. We're not going to pay you. We're going to be behind in our bills. Glendale is not where we want to be. There's no fans, no money. We don't like it. But please, can we stay here for a really good, reasonable rate?
Yeah.
Right.
What?
They were behind in their payments when I was talking to the city. There's they owe us $1 million right now, just at this as we speak.
So it is still interesting to see. And I'm still of the belief. I still personally believe that's where they play next year. I think they'll pay a premium. I think they'll
so this year and next year.
Yeah. I think they'll be back. I think there's really no choice. I think they'll be there. I think they'll pay a premium. There'll be all kinds of things on the contract on when and how they get paid. I don't think they have a choice.
Well, you don't have it. You can't build an arena that quickly.
No, it's either that or the Madhouse on McDowell, and that's not
going to happen.
an option.
That's too.
So I think they'll be there, and it goes back to the business dealings. Do you want that reputation of that kind of ownership publicly? Whether and we could talk all day whether it's real, not real, or what they're doing is right or wrong. The public perception of that ownership is what you read in the media, in The Athletic, because instead of coming out and saying, "Hey, to fix that culture, we're going to do this,"
Right.
That's not what they did.
No.
They came out with a response.
Complete opposite direction.
Their response to The Athletic is, "Well, we're going to sue everybody that talked in The Athletic article," which just reinforced everything that was talked about in The Athletic article.
Do you think there is a cultural issue in the organization with this new ownership group that is non-redeemable?
Wow. I think there's always a way out.
I think winning cures all ills.
Yeah.
Like even the Suns were the most miserable, dysfunctional franchise for almost 10 years. And then
They had 11-year playoff drought.
Yeah. And then they drafted Devin Booker. And then they drafted DA and Mikal Bridges. And then they had a foundation. And that bubble run happened. They got a couple more vets. Then a guy like Chris Paul wanted to come. It was all like this giant domino effect that I don't think anyone saw happening that quickly. But I think if you draft the right talent, it'll come. But I think what I'm hearing from you, though, is that like where they play is almost more important right now than
they need to
who
play
they
somewhere else
have.
to make the money
Yeah.
to be able to compete
Yeah.
at an even playing field in the NHL.
Yeah.
They can't compete in Glendale. And I tell you what, the facility when it was built was fantastic.
Mhm.
It's been there 18 years now, and it's a great place to go to work. It's a good building. It's a great building to watch a hockey game in. No excuses, but they can't generate the revenue there.
Yeah.
Without revenue, you can't have a business, and you can't put a winner on the ice.
Mhm.
They need to move. It's just the reality, and you're seeing it across the sports landscape. Every sport needs that shiny new building.
Mhm.
And if the Coyotes are going to compete, and whether we talk about culture or winning, the only way that's going to happen is if they go somewhere else. And I think it is. I think the new building starts everything. Then there's going to be more money. And with more money, you can do the things that make everybody inside and outside the organization happier. It's really going to come down to that. And I don't want to leave personally this thing saying we're bashing the Coyotes ownership, because I still have relationships with a lot of people that work there. And I know they're doing a lot of things in the community. They're trying to put on the brave face and do the right things. I don't know if they're doing things because they just don't know how to do it differently. Right. And that's how we talk about running a sports franchise. I still think they're learning how to run a sports franchise, and I think that's the difference there. They're still trying to run it like other businesses that they've had, and I don't know if that model works for professional sports. Mm-hmm. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds like the organization itself is at a huge crossroads, because this can either go one of two ways. Like you were saying earlier, they can either get this new arena deal. They have 8 picks in the draft next year. They've got a lot of talent in their system now that they recouped from trades that they made this past offseason. If they can get all the ball rolling on that, the future is bright. For sure. But it sounds like, it's all very dependent on
very
whether
precarious.
Or not. Yeah, it's a precarious situation.
You're going to hear next summer, Houston. It's just the same thing we've heard. Winnipeg, Seattle. I was looking for houses in Portland, Oregon, and that's not a joke. At one point in this ownership fiasco over the last 20 years. Well,
that was my next question is, if this ball doesn't get rolling and this organization can't right the course, do they move?
I keep saying there's no chance they leave the Valley for the same thing Gerald said. It's top 10 TV market in the country. The league wants them here.
Well, the commissioner doesn't want them to go anywhere.
The league wants the team here desperately.
Yeah.
At some point, though, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And if they don't get that new building, I don't know if they can stay.
How many more ownership groups do you need to change?
Right.
How many more times? How many more losing seasons? How many more turmoil do you need to go through before it's just enough and you have to go somewhere else?
I hope that never happens. Mm-hmm. The city, for small as the hockey fan base is, it's extremely
so
passionate.
Yes.
They love the sport. I hope hockey survives here, and I truly believe Bill Armstrong and the management team is trying to do the right things to build a winner in the same pattern that the Suns did. The Suns were miserable for years. They drafted well, they developed well, and now they're a much different franchise than they were. That's the plan the Coyotes have. Mm-hmm. They've got the pieces in place. If they can execute them, there's no reason that this can't be a team that's battling for a championship 5-6 years from now. It's just between now and 5-6 years from now, there's a very, very long time to a sports fan. So let's hope they can stay on track and get to the place where the Suns are today.
But I'm pretty optimistic about that.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't sound, going back to my earlier question, it doesn't sound like the situation is irredeemable.
Absolutely not. And I want everybody here and there to go, there's positives here. Like this is really a good time if you're patient to be a Coyotes fan, because you can see the Suns' success, the exact same plan. And I will say this, the Coyotes have more draft picks in the first 2 rounds next year than any team in the history of the league. Mm-hmm. So if they draft well, like this could be something. It really can be. It's just not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah.
So let's hope, fingers are crossed. Let's hope they move. Ownership has raking in money from sports gaming, a new facility, naming rights, all of things are happening, and they're putting that money right back into the team and buying great players.
Hang in there, Coyotes fans. I was going to try to smoothly transition into a Manscaped read, but Petey.
There's nothing smooth.
Here we go.
Smoother than a Manscaped read.
Here we go, Petey, if you want to take it away.
Well, I will say this. There's a lot of pressure because this is a big deal. Again, we got Cardinals, Suns, a big deal. Like on our little show in the basement.
Full disclaimer. Full disclaimer. I
cares?
cannot do Manscaped raids anymore because my grandmother listens to these podcasts, and I feel so horrible knowing that my grandma is listening to me talk about this. So I have passed off my Manscaped read duties to Petey. Love the company. Use code PHNX and Manscaped. But personally, my grandmother might.
Chierstin, have you done one yet?
No, I don't touch them. Nope.
Support for the PHNX Sports Show is brought to you by our friends at Manscaped, the leaders in male grooming. Join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and the 2 million partners who are glad they did by going to manscaped.com. 20% off and free shipping using the code PHNX. Did anybody here get a chance to go outside last night and look at the sky or early this morning?
No.
I'm very concerned already.
Full moon last night, particularly bright, and this time of year, it is called a hunter's moon because it's a night light for hunters that used to prepare for the hunt for the winter.
Mhm.
Well, let your inner hunter come out with the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. It has its own built-in night light so you can hunt down your furry prey and prepare for winter. Whether you are using a big shotgun or a slingshot, or even if you are not hunting right now and just a gatherer doing the job by hand, make sure you are clean and confident down there with Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code PHNX at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code PHNX at manscaped.com. Keep your firearm clean and polished. Duck season, rabbit season, duck season. No, it's Manscaped season.
Well done.
Oh, that was amazing.
I'm very
Well
impressed.
done.
I lived up to the hype and then some.
Oh, I'm literally crying tears over here. I can't make it through these reads, you guys. I am
No.
just too innocent.
I
I'm
was
sorry.
genuinely interested in the story you were telling
But
there.
see, the truth is, and I will say this too,
Yeah.
don't wait. Like this 20% off and free shipping is like Christmas. It's going to go away.
Oh.
Like don't miss out.
Yes, please use
Okay.
our code PHNX at manscaped.com. Petey, you got the comments riled up with your
Drop that mic.
to read.
I tell you what, if you
What a
haven't heard the
legend.
Field of Dreams read, it's still my favorite.
Oh boy! All
The
right.
Kevin
Well, thank
Costner,
you, Petey,
Iowa
for that.
cornfield.
I'm gonna
Petey
need
is
to
a
watch that.
Manscaped legend. There you go.
That's a good thing
See,
to be
that's
known
what I
for.
live for. Like, that's the Coyote fans' expectations right there.
Oh,
Let's have a good
amazing.
Manscaped read.
All right. Well, going
Okay.
from one team who has had a litany of owners, including the league, to one team who has had one family own it since the very beginning, since the inception in 1936. Fun fact: when the Cardinals became a team, not in Arizona, but that's okay. The Bidwell family has been the owner of the Cardinals since inception.
Chicago,
Chierstin,
St. Louis, Arizona.
all over the place. It seems to me that this is a great time to own the team now, but some could say, it wasn't always that way, especially with the previous owner. How now has Michael turned the tides of this Cardinals ownership and improved this franchise, do you think?
Well, I think they might have had under his dad, Bill Bidwell, had the reputation of being cheap and not paying players to keep their star players or keep them happy. And we all know at this point that your players, they need to feel respected, and like little things, you'd hear stories about players having to pay for certain extra socks and like things like that, where it's just sort of like, it's like, really, it's a small gesture by you, but it means a lot to me, and like that, those kinds of things you would hear about. But I think Michael has done a tremendous job in taking over for his dad, and I don't know that you really hear much negativity surrounding it. I think the one knock that you might have heard, and probably this year's results, because winning cures everything, have sort of silenced the Steve Keim critics. But I think at times he's buddies with Steve Keim, and so at times he's been criticized for giving Keim a little too much leeway. And so, that's maybe the one thing that I've heard about it. But again, this team's winning. Steve Keim has got nothing but praise for, the moves that he's made, and, all is well right now. But Michael Bidwell does a lot in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Sarver, he makes himself available to media. He answers questions. You hear him on the radio all the time. And he's out in the community giving back. Before COVID, I would cover events all the time, like during Thanksgiving, where he's with the team handing out meals at a shelter, things like that. He's out. My former coworker Kim Cox was telling me a story. He's like, I don't think I've ever heard of an owner doing this. When he was, I think 2018 at Green Bay, when the team was horrible, he on a Saturday night showed up to a Bird Gang travel event. Shout out to our new partners, by the way, Bird Gang Travel, and was there taking pictures super late at night on a Saturday out in Green Bay, taking pictures with fans. And that kind of stuff goes a long way with players, with the fan base, and with the community. So he's done a tremendous job in that regard. And he's been nothing but super friendly, anytime he's out and about.
Did he take over prior to the run to the Super Bowl? Was he the owner then, Mac? Do your research?
Michael took over in...
It's only been like 5...
Yeah,
I'm just
it
curious
hasn't been
the
very
timing
long.
of
I don't
things.
think it's been very long. Yeah,
Because
I don't...
that is the one benefit to an owner in NFL football. Their TV contract is the richest in sports. So you can pay your players based on your TV contract before you even open the door.
Right.
So to run a tight business, honestly, it didn't matter if they won or lost. The owner is going to make money. And that's, in sports, it's almost counterintuitive. You think you should have to win to make money or be competitive to make money. In football, you didn't have to be. You know, and I think that's probably the view they took then.
Well, and that was my
Why
next...
do we need to spend money?
Yeah, that was my next question, Chierstin, is, you know, the Bidwell family has owned this team since its inception, and yet they have never won a Super Bowl. Do you think, you know, they care about winning and they really care about, you know, wanting to win a championship? They want to bring the Super Bowl, the Lombardi Trophy to the Valley. Is that something that they're all in on?
I don't really have anything that would suggest otherwise. So absolutely. I mean, it's hard to win in the National Football League. It's as simple as that. And so I don't think that you can ever say, since this team has not hoisted the Lombardi Trophy, that means the owner doesn't care. I think they're totally bought into winning and totally bought into the community, which is great to see. So yeah, I mean, I think it just takes time and, you know, having the right, you know, people around you. That's, I mean, a lot of times, again, this goes back to my initial comment to you, Makayla. It is really difficult to figure out what's ownership and what's the people closest to him that are also helping make decisions.
Right.
A lot of times it's the people around them that they haven't put in place, where I would say most of the blame or the credit can fall to. So I think right now, you know, what they've been able to produce here in the last, you know, couple of years and develop into this 6-0 run to start the season, I think shows that they're not only dedicated to it, but they're willing to think outside the box for ways to get to that point. And yeah, I mean, I think Cardinals fans should be pretty happy with Cardinals ownership.
Yeah, and I think this season more than any, at least in my personal opinion, it feels like they really want to win this season, especially. I mean, you know, they lost Max Williams to an injury and he went on the IR, and they immediately looked for solutions. And now Zach Ertz is an Arizona Cardinal. To me, that's a move you make if you want to win and you're a contender. You know that you're a contender, and not that money fixes everything, but they're going to make those resources available to bring in players like a Zach Ertz caliber in order to make that happen.
100%. And this is just on the top of my mind because I was going to talk about it tonight on the PHNX Cardinals podcast, but I'll go ahead and say it here first.
Tune in.
I feel like the way that last season ended, as horrific as it was the best thing that could have ever happened to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Because it lit a fire to make changes. You know, had they made it to the playoffs, I don't know that we would have J.J. Watt or Rodney Hudson. And it lit a fire, and it showed that the Cardinals were serious about getting better. And they came into the season a heck of a lot better. And make, you know, when Max Williams goes down, you go out and you find, and tight end's a really hard position to find a star player, and it just is. There are only a handful of star tight ends out there that are going to make a difference. And so you go out and you get one of the, you know, the best in the league to come here and fill that void. And so, yeah, I think they have shown by the moves that they've made and what they've invested into this team that they're all in on winning.
Yeah, I think so too. And this is a question for Chierstin, but all of you guys can also weigh in. At the current state, looking at around the Valley, the current state of the rest of the teams, would you say that Michael Bidwell is the best owner currently in the Valley?
I feel like it'd have to be by default, just because, and I do think that Sarver has been better in recent years. Like, you don't make that trade for Chris Paul, sign Jay Crowder, re-sign Bridges, extend Shamet, like make all these moves, or at least, you know, give your GM the freedom to make these kind of moves if you're not committed to paying up for a winner. I think obviously a finals run kind of backs you into a corner in that regard. But even before that, last summer, he made moves. But I feel like just given his kind of checkered past and the amount of distrust there, because like, you know, you're talking about an owner who's going out in the community, building that culture, building that relationship with Cardinals fans. Sarver has done a lot of, you know, community events and stuff like that, but you would never like equate him with that. You would like Suns fans, when they hear Sarver, they cringe. Like it's not a healthy relationship at all.
Yeah.
So
and,
I feel like
and
by
Michael
default-
Bidwell's made himself a face of the franchise too. Like he's
Yeah.
around, he's visible. And a lot of the comments, she just said something that struck home to me. Like the owners, do you blame them owners or the managers? Alex Morello Sr. is not around this team. He doesn't have an office at the building. He's not there on an every day-to-day basis.
Right.
He comes to some games. He's got businesses all over North America. Like this
who you see, Javier Gutierrez.
Right. It's so Alex Morello Sr. is the owner of the Coyotes. Is he creating the culture there? He goes to the Christmas party. Like, and I'm not making light of it. He is not Michael Bidwell. Michael Bidwell's there every day, offsing every day, on the sidelines. So these decisions falling back on the owner at the Coyotes, maybe not completely fair because he's just getting reports from the people he put in place. So that's where all of that lies, not the owner himself.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much he really knows what's going on there every day. I really don't.
Yeah.
Because you just don't see him. Where Michael Bidwell, he's there.
Yeah.
He's hands-on.
And it might even be the difference. I mean, they do stuff with Children's Hospital. I mean, they're really ingrained in the community. And it might be the difference between a family-owned business and somebody who's just here to make
Put
money.
it to his portfolio.
Yeah. Well, and I think it too, like Michael Bidwell has done such a great job of just, like you said, establishing himself as a person that, you know, is involved with the organization, that is there, that is cares, even with his players. You know, when unfortunately Bill Bidwell passed away tragically, Kyler Murray had a portrait made for Michael of his father that he could hang in his office.
Yep.
And I think that speaks volumes. You know, Kyler Murray's not going to do that if he doesn't care about the owner or doesn't have a relationship with an owner. But the fact he took time to do that also, I think, speaks to, you know, who Michael is as an owner and how much he cares about the organization as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yeah. And you can see players stick around, you know, the Larry Fitzgerald thing, the fact that I don't think it was, you know, that's something that starts from the top and trickles down, you know, the culture that Larry wanted to be a part of. And, you know, the fact that he sort of had an open door, and I know he's not going to come back. So that's not what I'm getting at. But the fact that it was like, you know, hey, we respect you. We value you. You mean so much to what we've done. If you want to come play for us, you're welcome to come play for us. I mean, those sort of things go a really, really long way with not only the players, but could you imagine if they had said, oh, well, you know, it's on him for not, you know, wanting to play this year. You know, we wish him the best or whatever. I mean, fans probably would have been pissed.
A la Shane Doan at the Coyotes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and guess why Shane Doan wasn't around for so long? And Shane Doan's around again. I mean, it's all. I mean, there's certain things you say and you don't say, but there's also, if you look around, there's reasons why everything is, you know, happens the way that it does. And Shane Doan's back, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a shift in ownership completely. The reason he's back, and you know, it what you say maybe isn't always important as what you do.
Yeah. Do you think Michael's the best owner in the Valley currently?
I mean, I suppose if you know, want to weigh an argument for each one, I think that Sarver gets a little more flack now for what he's done in the past, and I'm not sure that that's fair. Like in this specific instance, which is why we're even talking about this topic, is because of the DeAndre Ayton situation. I really don't think that's 100% him. I think people grow and learn, and you know, you can start a career and have you know, an ego or a reason for doing it that may not be pure, or, you know, whatever the case is, and you can grow and learn and become a different person. That happens. We have all grown in our life and our careers. So I think Sarver probably gets a little too much flack for everything at this point.
Yeah.
And I think the jury's still out on the Coyotes ownership, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
We can.
And I think that's fair.
yeah, so we can sit there and we can talk on both ends of the spectrum. They're doing a lot of things. They're also trying to get out in the community, although it's Javier and it's not
Right,
the ownership.
it's not the owner.
No, it's not the owner.
You're right. It's not the owner. And the owner wasn't even, and I saw one of the comments come across, the owner wasn't an opening night of the new season. And, that's a way to endear yourself with your fan base.
Mhm.
But not saying you have to be present. You don't have to be, Jerry Jones or Mark Cuban. You don't have to be that.
Right.
But it does help have a recognizable face that's the guy we believe in and that's the guy we're following to the promised land. I think it does go.
With owners, I feel like it's a delicate line between walking the balance between publicly present, but behind the scenes giving the people that you hire the leeway
Right.
to make the moves they need to make,
Right.
because nobody likes a meddling owner, and that's why Sarver gets so much
Absolutely.
flack, because in the past he's intervened. I think now he's actually taken a step back, and unfortunately he's still getting a lot of flack for it
Yeah.
because of his past.
Yep. All
We
right.
haven't talked about the Diamondbacks at all, but I feel like there's probably a lot to say. I feel like they're well run for the most part, and if you loop all of them in, though, I would still say the Bidwells are doing so many great things in every aspect of ownership, and so for all things considered, I would say they're probably the best.
Yeah.
And love them or hate them, thank goodness we have them,
Mhm.
because we wouldn't be here talking about sports if these guys didn't put up a lot of their money to make
Yeah.
all of these things happen.
It's true.
So
It's
thank
true.
goodness we have them.
That is true. I love that, PD. Ending on a very positive note. All right,
Wow,
that was
Petey.
Just trying.
what a ray of sunshine you are. That was our discussion on how the ownership is affecting the teams in the Valley. You guys are more than welcome to weigh in on Twitter. We already have a tweet up about this at PHNX_sports. Make sure you go follow us on Twitter and weigh in on the conversation, or in our members only Discord. We would love to hear what you guys think about the owners in the Valley. If you sign up to become an annual member at gophnx.com, you'll get a free t-shirt. You also get access to all of our written content. Gerald has the most amazing articles up on gophnx.com about the Suns. So make sure you become a member, sign up. You get access to that members only Discord. You get to talk with us. We're in there all the time. Speaking of the Cardinals, really quickly, they're 17.5-point favorites on DraftKings Sportsbook right now. That is quite the spread, Chierstin. Are you
not
gonna
sure
take...
that's ever happened before.
Yeah, that's
That's a college football spread. Like, that's not a pro
Yeah,
football.
that's
Alabama
not.
opening.
I think Johnny knows more about it, but like the fact, what they've done so far this season, the fact that they're 17.5-point favorites, like that's crazy.
that's wild. Are you taking them? I'm assuming.
Yeah, Johnny was telling me that if you take like the line though, like you're not going to make money off of it,
Right.
is
Yeah.
what he was
It's too big.
explaining to me, because I'm
Mhm.
still learning this whole sports
The
betting
money
thing.
line, yeah.
So because they're such heavy favorites, if you pick the Cardinals to win, like you're not really gonna. You have to bet a lot to make a
Mhm.
little.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Makes sense. Are you guys betting anything this weekend? You got anything on the Suns?
I have a couple of prop bets on the Suns based
Okay.
on who's going to score how many points. I have a couple parlays that I included the Cardinals, just because I was like, if I just compound these parlays, it'll add up at some point. But yeah, I had a couple for the Suns. I had them to win, and I think if Devin Booker scores more than 20, I think it was a plus 100, but I can't remember.
It's
There
a
you
whole
go.
new world. And most importantly, it's unbelievably easy. I wait till I'm a college football only.
Mm.
I know nothing about college football. I just wait to see what game is on.
Yeah.
And I hit my button, and then I can watch the game with interest. Then I care, no matter what the score is. So
Love that.
It's easy
Forcing
to do it.
yourself to care by betting on the games.
Yeah.
is that awful? 1-800.
I'm
You
paying
can also
money to
emotionally
care about
hedge your
sports.
bets. You know, if the team loses, but you bet on the other team to win, that's emotional
it's
hedging
okay.
right there.
Yeah.
You get to profit off
Well,
that.
that's how fantasy football works too. All of a sudden, you care about certain
Yes.
teams you don't
Yep.
care about just because they've got your guy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, make sure you guys download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code PHNX at sign up. If you bet $5 on any NFL team to win, and that team does win, you'll get $200 in free bets. It's an awesome deal. DraftKings is great, safe, reliable. We love them. Make sure you go download that app. Don't forget to become a member at gophnx.com, where you get access to all of our awesome content. Thank you so much for watching the Phoenix Sports Podcast, or listening if you're listening to it on your Apple or Spotify. And we will see you next week.